So I asked you that preposterous question. Have you learned anything from COVID? Maybe you feel like, yes, I've learned how to endure it. I know endurance. Well, I think there's a whole lot more to learn than that. I don't think that's the best attitude, actually. I know maybe some of us are looking at it as a test. God is testing us, pass or fail. God does not test us, pass or fail. God is not the one doing this as much as He has given the universe freedom. The great of freedom. And think about that. You may be wondering, well, what is God doing? Is He sitting back? Is He the deist who has set everything in motion and set the clocks, and He's way far away watching us suffer? Do you know where God is? God is in the nurses and the doctors, the front line. God is in the father or the mother who is struggling right now. God is in those people working the food pantry, helping the poor, those who are struggling because of finances. Or God is in the St. Vincent de Paul who are helping people financially. God is in the people who are trying to lift us up at this time. That's where God is at. God is in those people who are dying from COVID. But it's not to end just in the dying. We are to rise. The end of the statement isn't God is dying. God is also rising. That's the real kicker. When I think about this, back to the question, what have you learned from COVID? I'm going to give you a bad example. Somebody who really didn't learn in their life. This COVID being one of the tragedies in our life. There was this other guy who was going through a tragedy. He did it to himself, though. He cheated on his wife, and he got caught. And he came to me, good step, to talk to me. He had given up somewhat and turned to me. And I shared some hard-won wisdom with him. Maybe you've heard me mention this before, but there are two things in life, two axioms in life that can really help you move forward. One, only you can do it. Only you can choose to change. We want somebody to tell us, and then when it doesn't work, because it really won't work well, because we're letting somebody tell us and we're not making our own choices, then we blame them, and the cycle just spins around, because the person hasn't really chosen to change. Which brings us to the second one, which seems it goes against, but it goes right with. Only you can do it. Only you can do it. The second one is you can't do it alone. Just testing you. You cannot do it alone. Whatever change you want to make, you need support in the flesh, people, God in the flesh. Why do we gather around this table? But not for needing one another, the body of Christ. I think about it, just a simple example. I got this desk in my room, and it's just huge. We got these huge problems in our life. Well, one of the huge problems is my big desk, and I want to move it. Now, I can try to move it on my own, but I'm going to break my back. But I can get people to help me to move that desk, and actually it'd be quite easy. Actually, you might think I'm quite stupid to do it on my own, because I really hurt myself. Yeah. So I was sharing this with this guy, and I said, the challenge is for you to reach out. He talked about how he cheated, and then he looked at, there's always underlying issues. Always, especially in such a big mistake. And one of the underlying issues was his anger about his childhood. I said, now's the time. Reach out to a psychologist or some person who can really help you that has knowledge on this situation, or some support group. Reach out of yourself. You know, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And he's been doing the same thing over and over again. And his answer is, well, we'll just do it harder. When I try to do things harder, you know what I feel like? I feel angry. Pouring gasoline on the fire. And so I was like, great. Get this help in your life. And I saw him a number of months later, and he came to me and he said, I'm doing great, Father. I said, well, great. What are you doing? Well, I'm loving my wife more. Great. How are you doing that? Did you go see a counselor? Did you get support in your life? No. That man was still angry. He hadn't dealt with his anger. And if it isn't another woman, it's another drink. A train wreck waiting to happen. I was just like, oh man, you were so ready to learn something. Man, you were so ready to be free. God teaches us in our failures. He can't really teach us in our success. Our successes make us think that we've achieved it on our own. But it's only through God's grace that we really did that. It's in our failures that we realize that we need God. So that's a negative example. Let me give you a positive example. So some of you may know this. It's not such a big secret, but I'll say it again. I don't know if you know, I suffer from depression. And dealing with that in my life. And the good news, I was in with my support group, and I finally came to my wit's end. I just couldn't do it. Working on my own just wasn't doing it. Trying to pray it away, praying harder, it just wasn't working. And I said the three most magical words: I give up. When the student is ready the teacher will arrive. When you're ready to learn, my bet somebody's going to show up in your life. If you're really ready to learn. And so a friend of me said, in my pre-support group, he said, Chris, I've got this great psychologist. That's the secret of my life. And when I finally turned to somebody that could see the whole picture of my life, where I could only see the trees, he could see the whole forest and help me to see the whole forest and why things were happening. He loved me, and he also pushed me. And there were many other times throughout that I learned those magic words. If I could just say that, I give up. I got to do something different. My way is not working. Sorry, Sinatra. My way is not working. And every time, God was there. I'm not saying I give up and I want somebody else to take care of me. No, that's not what I'm saying. I give up and I need help. Every time God was there to catch me. Every time God was there to show me the other way. Now, be it for me, it was a counselor. Maybe for you, it's a support group or some wise person who's gone before you. But we all need that because you know what? You might be thinking, that poor Father Chris, yeah, he had to go through that terrible thing. We all reach that point in our life at some point. I hate to break the news to you. We all reach that stumbling block. Yeah. And some people choose to endure it and be bitter the rest of their lives. And some people give up to God. I learned how to reach out for help from my depression. I learned from it. It wasn't something just to endure. My life is better than before depression. I'm freer in a way I've never been. Some of you might be thinking like, oh my gosh, Father Chris is in a depression. We better go have pity on him. And how can I, a lot of people afterwards will say, how can I help you? How can I help you? Do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and your children. We all go through this. Are you still trying to do it harder? Learn from my mistake. What can we learn from COVID? Those are the things that I have learned in my tragedies. Now we face this tragedy. And you might be thinking, well, what is it? Are you still trying to endure it? Are you still got your knuckles white? Or have you learned something? Let me tell you what I've learned. I'll just give you a little snippet. I've learned how to wait more in silence. That I have found when I sit with the silence, many of us run. I know that's my knee-jerk reaction, is to run away from the silence. Bad idea. Lots of loneliness there. Well, there certainly can be loneliness there. But if you turn yourself to God and listen to Him, He will speak to you. Help me, God, in this. How can I change for the better? Help me to transform this. What do I need to do? I've learned to wait in silence. I've learned to wait in silence and talking to my friends on the phone. Silence is okay. Eventually we'll have something to talk about. Silence is not just okay, it's an ally. If you can sit with it, if you can face it and not run from it, you'll find that you're not alone, that God is with you. What else might we be learning? What else might we be learning? I asked that question to you. Send me some emails. I know there's so many ways to learn. I'd like to maybe share that in the future, what other people's thoughts are. I know that God is going to teach you something that's somehow, some way, that He's going to transform this in your life. You may not be able to see what it is now. It may take a couple years, but I promise you, if you give it to God, if you give up trying to do it on your own, God can transform this. What does this have to do with the gospel? Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. Don't be like that man. That bitter man. Turn to God. Give it everything you've got.